The funeral flowers were barely fading when the calls began. 2 weeks after we buried Sarah, I was standing in my kitchen on a Thursday morning, watching steam rise from a chipped green mug I hadn't touched. It was a Father's Day gift from my granddaughter Sophie, but now it felt heavy, almost like it belonged to someone I no longer recognized. The house felt strange, my reflection in the hallway mirror unfamiliar, even my own voice sounded foreign when I picked up the phone. Before we go any further, if my story has found you, hit subscribe, and tell me in the comments where you're listening from. I want to see just how far my words can travel. Dad, we need to talk about the house. My son David's voice carried that same impatient edge he'd had since his teenage years. I set the mug down. Good morning to you too, David. He didn't bother with pleasantries. This place is too big for you. Taxes, upkeep, it's not realistic. We've already found a buyer. I told him flatly, there's no mortgage. Sarah and I had paid it off 6 years ago, though I'd never mentioned it. Silence followed, then a sharp laugh, the kind that used to be mine. Dad, please. Mom's pension barely covered her medication. We know you're under strain. I looked out the window at the garden Sarah and I tended for 25 years. Rosemary leaned over the path, the lemon tree sagged with branches. Every plant had turned into a monument to what I'd lost. You're worried about me? I asked. I'm worried about what's practical, he snapped. I imagined him at his dining table, laptop open, columns labeled Dad's house, proceeds, split. I taught him numbers when he was a boy, but now he was calculating me. Not long after I hung up, the phone rang again. This time it was my daughter Megan. Her voice was high, too cheerful. Dad, Mark and I agree. You should sell. You could live with us. The basement has a bath. We could add a kitchenette. You'd have your own space. It's perfect. Perfect, she said. 4 walls underground. Then came the suggestion I'd expected. Money for Sophie's tuition, maybe help with David's new place. A win-win. I asked quietly, when was the last time you called to talk about anything other than money? She hesitated, then snapped. You've been sending Sophie money every month? Yes, I answered. 500 for 2 years. She said Sophie didn't need to know. Of course not. After I hung up, the silence felt different. Not mourning anymore, but like waiting for the next blow. My hands still smelled of rosemary from the garden. Helen used to hand me sprigs like trophies, smiling as if I'd helped. Eventually, my feet carried me to her study. The room smelled of lemon oil and her faint perfume, still clinging to the curtains. Her desk was exactly as she'd left it, pen across a yellow pad, an envelope peeking out. I pulled open the bottom drawer. Beneath old tax returns and greeting cards, I found a pale blue folder. On the front was a sticky note in her careful handwriting. If you're reading this, you need to know what's inside. I hesitated, tracing the edge of the paper. Sunlight shifted across the desk, rosemary drifting in from the garden. Finally, I opened it. Inside were bank statements from accounts I'd never heard of, all in Sarah's name. Small sums scattered across different banks. Then, property papers. My chest tightened as I read, a deed for a villa in Florida, bought 10 years ago. Only Sarah's name on it. There were life insurance policies too. Most named David and Megan, but one, smaller, more recent, named only Sophie. At the very back was an envelope, sealed with Sarah's looping script. Michael, if you found this, I'm gone. And if I'm right, the calls have already started. They'll circle you, not because they need you, but because they want what you've built. I've watched it for years, the comments, the questions, the way they count what isn't theirs yet. You've always given them the benefit of the doubt. I stopped doing that long ago. For the first time since the funeral, I felt something other than loss. Not hope, not yet, but a direction. The house was mine, Sarah had written. She'd paid it off so I'd never have to answer to anyone about it. But she knew the kids would try to convince me I couldn't handle things alone. That's why she left a second plan. The villa wasn't in my name, but there were instructions, contacts for a Miami law office, even a key taped to the page. Next to it, in her handwriting, "Trust Anna. She owes me her life." I set the folder down, my pulse steady though my mind was racing. That afternoon I drifted through the house, every object, a photo of David at graduation, Megan's college vase, Sophie's crayon drawing, suddenly felt like evidence. Even the spice rack Sarah had arranged by height, not alphabet, carried new weight. I remembered telling her once that the kids loved her. She'd answered, "They love the version of me that says yes." At the time I dismissed it. Now it sounded like warning. By evening David called again, then Megan texted. They'd come Saturday, with Sophie. The phrasing struck me. Bring Sophie, like I was the guest, not the host. I ignored them and went back to the folder. Among the papers was an insurance policy naming Sophie alone. The date was from after Sarah's diagnosis. She'd chosen her. Tucked in back was a photo, Sarah and Sophie in the garden, hands dirty from planting herbs, straw hats tilted. On the back Sarah had written, "Teach her how to keep what matters." That night I locked the study door, slipped the villa key into the safe only Sarah and I knew about, and made a list, what they know, what they don't. The second list was longer. For the first time since the funeral, I felt something sharper than grief. Not anger, but resolve. They thought I was waiting to be pushed off a cliff. They didn't know I'd already built a bridge. Saturday morning came bright and cold. I walked the frosted garden paths, pruned the rosemary, swept the steps. By the time David's SUV pulled up, I'd reclaimed my rhythm. Sophie ran to me first, hugging me tight, her hair smelling faintly of the shampoo Sarah used to buy her. Mark and Megan followed, bringing expensive perfume and clipped politeness. We sat at the kitchen table. They spoke of buyers, offers, practicality. I let them circle while I stirred my tea. Finally I asked, "Practical for me, or for you?" Silence stretched. I reminded David of the summer we fixed the roof together, when he was 12. "This house isn't just space," I told him. "It's work, and I can still do it." Megan reminded me I was nearly 70. I let it pass. I didn't mention the folder, or the villa, or Anna. Not yet. Sophie wandered back with a drawing. My garden, the lemon tree, even the blue curtains in Sarah's study. "Grandma told me to always draw what's true," she said. I smiled, knowing Sarah's words were still guiding her. Before they left, I dropped one truth like a stone. The house was paid off years ago. They were stunned, though they tried to recover. I walked them to the door, hugged Sophie goodbye, and when the SUV rolled away, the silence felt steady, almost protective. Back in Sarah's study, I looked at the photo of her and Sophie. Teach her how to keep what matters. The battle wasn't about selling a house. It was about legacy. That night, I dialed the Miami number. A woman's voice answered, warm and sure. "This is Anna." "Anna," I said, steady. "Sarah was my wife. She told me to call when the time came." There was a pause. Then she said, "Mr. Hayes, I think we should meet. Soon." For the first time in weeks, I felt the ground shift, not beneath me, but beneath them. They thought they were setting the rules. But after Anna's call, the board had shifted. Her voice lingered like warmth after someone leaves a room. I stood at the kitchen window, phone face down, watching the rosemary move in a breeze I couldn't feel. The garden was steady. Left, the rosemary. Right, the lemon tree. Stones between them like music I'd memorized. There's a rhythm in quiet things, if you listen. I opened a fresh page on Sarah's yellow pad, 3 columns this time. What they know, what they don't, and what I want them to think. The third column mattered most. Revenge isn't fire. It's a thermostat. My first call wasn't to David or Megan. It was to someone from my old Rolodex, Paul Atwood, Estates and Trusts. Years ago, he'd untangled a family dispute for Sarah's aunt. He was precise, allergic to drama. When I walked into his brick office, the old vault door in the lobby reminded me that people once put value behind steel, not clouds. Paul greeted me in his usual navy suit, steady as ever. No hugs. Just water, table, papers. I laid out the deed first, my name alone on the house. He nodded, businesslike. She did this right. No one can sell what you own. Then he reminded me of the trust Sarah had updated. The kids only inherit if I choose. The only exception was a small policy for Sophie. His tone softened. That mattered to her. I admitted. I know. When I mentioned David trying to sell without me, Paul's mouth twitched. Then let me be clear. 1. Without power of attorney, they can't bind you to anything. 2. Even if you'd given it, you could revoke it any time. He slid letters across the table. Cease representation, notice of non-authorization. Certified mail, filed at the county. His words weren't angry. They were final. I also showed him Sarah's secret plan, the Florida villa, the Miami firm, the caretaker Anna. His brow lifted with interest, not surprise. He promised discretion, a trust with a dull name, correspondence through his office only. You want distance. We'll make distance. He talked about freezing my credit, reviewing Sarah's hidden accounts, moving only what she intended. Quietly. Always quietly. Back home, I locked the copies in my desk drawer. My drawer, not Sarah's. That mattered. A voicemail from David followed. Don't do anything rash, Dad. We're trying to make this easy. Then Megan's text. Dinner Tuesday? We'll bring takeout. I typed, sounds good, erased it, then sent it. You don't win by being predictable. You win by the clock. That evening I rented a P.O. box. Medium size. Extra key. A click that translated as options. Then I drove to the cemetery. Sarah's name on the stone still startled me, like bad light in a mirror. I stood in my good shirt, silent, the wind moving through flags like low applause. Finally I spoke. They think grief makes me soft. You did the hard part, Sarah. Now I'll do the rest. By Monday, certified receipts stacked in my tracking app like falling dominoes. Broker, buyer's agent, county. Then a call from a realtor named Greg. His voicemail said enough. Your son indicated. I called back after lunch, speaker on, recorder running. Mr. Hawthorne, I said evenly. There is no confusion. I own my home. Any contact must go through my attorney. Do not speak to my children about my property. And do not come to my door again. The realtor tried to sound friendly, but presumption always carries its own smell. I ended the call politely, sent the recording to Paul's office with a plain subject line, and got his quick reply. Perfect. Logged. There's a strange comfort in life reduced to verbs. Later, I spoke with Anna. Her English had music in it, her laugh catching on the second syllable. Your Sarah saved me once, she said. I didn't ask how. Trust arrives in its own time. She promised the villa was ready, fresh linens, lemons in a bowl. I said soon, a week maybe. She said Florida knows how to wait. That night I booked a one-way, fully refundable ticket through Newark, using the P.O. box for billing, no printouts, no location sharing. I wasn't hiding. I was refusing to be tracked by people who hadn't asked permission. Objects seemed to talk as I walked the house. David's photo at 12, reminders of old mistakes. Megan's ceramics, her hunger for praise. Sophie's crayon garden, that was the future worth investing in. I marked boxes with sticky notes, not for Laura, careful, later to Sophie. The next morning, the realtor appeared at my door again with another man, David's lawyer. I spoke to them through the chain. They already had my attorney's notice. I saw fine, I told them. Leave a card. They did. Harmless moths, unless ignored. At noon David called. Dad, Greg says you threatened legal action. I corrected him. No, I promised it. When he mentioned conservatorship, I stayed calm. Are you claiming incapacity? He softened. We can't wait for you to make mistakes. I told him threats would go to my attorney. We'd meet Thursday, my house, both sides with counsel. Bullies like schedules. After, I opened Sarah's blue folder again. A small envelope waited, Independence. Inside was a bank card, with her note, "You hate allowances. Consider this a dare. Use it to build a life, not buy time." Her faith steadied me. That evening I changed the deadbolt, oiled hinges, tightened screws, replaced smoke detector batteries. Labor that makes a house answer to you. Scotch afterward tasted like resolve. Sleep came clean. By dawn, an email from the Miami firm confirmed I was sole heir. Paper moving on my behalf while I slept. Outside, neighbor Joyce waved from her porch. When I returned, a package sat on the step in David's impatient handwriting. Inside, a condo brochure, smiling strangers, bullet point amenities. I slid it under the Scotch bottle to level a wobble. Useful, after all. Thursday came gray. Paul arrived early as always, placing his legal pad on my kitchen table, the same table where my kids once told me my life no longer fit me. David came with his lawyer, Jeff. Megan followed, tired around the eyes. Sophie was missing. I felt her absence like missing light. Jeff spoke first, all reasonableness. Paul slid the cease and desist across the table. My client owns his home. He has not authorized a sale. Any further attempt will be interference, and you will be named. David clenched his jaw. Megan tried a smile. Dad, we're thinking long-term. So am I said. I started before you could drive. David leaned forward. You can keep the house, but you can't expect us to carry. Carry what? I asked. The burden, he muttered. Of my life. My bills you don't pay? Or of not getting what you counted as yours? He looked to Jeff. Law couldn't save him. Paul spoke into the silence. Threats of conservatorship have been recorded. Any petition will face evidence of competency and coercion. Megan flinched. David bristled. I slid them a page, my own list in block letters. 1. I am not selling my home. 2. If I relocate, you'll know after I decide. 3. I will continue to support Sophie directly. Any attempt to mediate ends all support. Megan's eyes softened. Dad, please. I'm not the enemy. No, I said. But I'm not a resource to be managed. They left in silence. At the threshold Megan asked, Do you have to be so cold? No, I told her. I choose to be clear. Minutes later, my phone buzzed with a Florida number. I stepped into Sarah's study, closed the door, and answered. The voice was friendly, precise. Mr. Hayes. The Florida firm called. They'd sent courier papers to my P.O. box, confirmation I was heir, a temporary authorization for Anna, and one more thing. Instructions Sarah had left, to be given only when I was ready. She was very careful, the voice said. I thanked him, surprised at how steady I sounded. At the post office, the clerk handed me a heavy envelope. Inside was proof. The villa with white walls and blue shutters was mine, recognized on both sides of the ocean. Anna's name was printed cleanly. At the bottom was Sarah's handwriting, faint but sure. If you're holding this, you are not lost. You are choosing. I drove home slow, the envelope on the seat where Sarah once sat. The house looked back at me, old but honest. I thought about Sophie's drawing, David's clenched jaw, Megan's eyes. Then I sent Anna a message, arriving soon. Prepare the house as you would for Sarah. Her reply came at once. Fresh linens, cut lemons, waiting. That night, I set the Lisbon envelope beside the blue folder. Past and future, stacked. The quiet in the house wasn't emptiness, it was expectation. Even the furnace kicking on felt like loyalty. Sarah once said, a life is built from the tasks you stop resenting. By morning, I made a new list. What goes, what stays, what travels. What goes, shoes David swore by, trophies, Megan's old clay projects. What stays, the kitchen table marked with their heights, Sarah's books with her notes, the piano she never learned to play but loved anyway. What travels, the Florida envelope, passports, one suitcase, Sarah's beach photo, and Sophie's glitter-crusted ornaments. I called a moving company. The man, Rodriguez, had the voice of someone who'd hauled other people's lives for years and still kept his patience. I told him 2 deliveries, 2 addresses. He asked if it was an estate clearance. No, I said. A correction. He laughed softly, like he understood. Then I packed David's yearbooks, his baseball cards, the tie I bought him for his first suit, and the letter I wrote on his 18th birthday. I put it on top of his trophies. No note, it spoke for itself. Megan's closet held scarves, shoe boxes labeled Clay, piano books she abandoned after 6 months. I wrapped them carefully, adding her 7th grade essay about wanting to bring something to the table. She hadn't meant money back then. Time rewrites us if we don't pay attention. Sophie's box of Christmas ornaments didn't go into any shipment. Those traveled with me. Some things you don't surrender to lessons. By the time the house filled with boxes, it didn't feel empty. It felt merciful, choosing what to carry, what to set down. At the hardware store, I grabbed tape, Sharpies, and a cheap safe. Not for cash, copies. Originals matter, but a well-placed copy can save you when the original is in the wrong hands. Back home, I labeled each box. Promises, sealed without needing a witness. I labeled the boxes, David, trophies return. Megan, piano books return. Clay box return. The word return steadied me. When people treat you like a resource, sometimes the best response is to give them back what they left behind. Neat handwriting makes silence sharp enough. At 3, I called Paul's office, told his assistant about the truck coming in the morning, and asked for one more letter, a memo confirming my house wasn't for sale. Boring on the surface, but boring is what keeps wolves away. That evening I copied the Florida deed, 3 times. One for the safe, one for the desk drawer, one hidden under the spare tire in the trunk. My father always said, hide things where people are already tired. Over salted pasta, I read Megan's text about Tuesday dinner. I typed back yes with a smile I didn't feel. Sometimes you let them think they're part of your plan. I slept on the study couch, the lemon oil still strong where Sarah's perfume had faded. At dawn I made coffee, wrote 2 short notes. I'm returning what belongs to you. I'm keeping what belongs to me. No signature. Names can be demands. Today, I preferred statements. By 7, Rodriguez and his men were hauling boxes, David's jacket, trophies, yearbooks, Megan's piano books and Clay box. I stood back, watching without hovering. At 7:31, I signed the receipt, my pen dragging across the page like a small verdict. By 8, photos buzzed to my phone, boxes on David's porch, the note visible, Megan stooping to pick up her bench. No caption needed. Sometimes giving people exactly what they asked for shows them the difference between wanting and deserving. The doorbell rang at 8:33. David stood there, waving his phone with the photo like proof of a crime. What is this? That, I said, is your life being returned to you. He called me petty. I told him it was accurate. He pushed a buyer's letter through the chain. This is a good offer. You're stubborn just to prove a point. There are points worth proving, I said. He raised his voice, always the last tool of a man out of arguments. I told him he could call me between 2 and 3, then closed the door without slamming. At 9:05 Megan called, her voice cracked. Dad, what are you doing? Returning what belongs to you, I said. They're just boxes, she whispered. They're reminders, I told her. And you can throw them away if you want. That's part of the lesson. She said I was being cruel. No, I answered. I'm being economical. Then softer, Sophie saw the piano books. She asked why. Tell her they're hers, I said. And that finishing something often takes longer than wanting to. Megan whispered. That's not fair. Fairness, I said, is a longer conversation than we have today. I didn't hang up on Megan. I let the call end quietly, the way a swing slows when you stop pushing. After, the kitchen felt larger, the house steadier. Before noon I drove to the bank, moved a small sum from the joint grocery account into Sarah's Dare card, and left the rest untouched. Numbers don't need to dance just because you've learned a new step. At the post office, I picked up another envelope from Florida. Heavy paper, government stamps, my name in ink that didn't smear. I didn't open it right away, slipped it into the glove box beside the car manual. At home I set it with the others and spread my hands across the desk like a man measuring what he's about to build. The plan had shifted, boxes moved, papers filed, people forced to carry what they'd left behind. At 1:59, David called, on time, pride pretending it could control the clock. He asked what I wanted. Finally, a question. I told him, to live in my house until I choose not to have my no taken seriously, to see his realtor treat me as more than a line item. If he couldn't, courts would. I reminded him of the recording, of judges who wouldn't like his threats of conservatorship. His certainty slipped. We ended with pie, my example of what real family time should sound like. I packed a suitcase, socks, 2 shirts, Sarah's sandalwood shaving kit, our beach photo, my passport, the dare card. I cut lemons from the tree and wrote a note. Locked doors, water basil, leave mail key with Joyce. Practicalities keep you honest when you're finally doing what you've threatened for weeks. That afternoon Megan showed up alone, piano books in her arms. I can't take this, she said. You already did, I answered. Tears threatened. Then just tell me what you want me to learn. For the first time in 37 years, she asked without expecting the answer to be a ladder. I told her, keep what's yours, stop confusing access with love, and if she wanted to bring things to the table, practice by carrying her own. She held the box tighter, surprised, and walked it to the car without asking for help. At the steps she turned. Will we see you? Yes, I said. When I decide. She half laughed, half cried. Pie, she whispered. That evening, I touched the tick marks on the kitchen table, straightened Sarah's photo on the mantel, locked the front door, and left the Florida envelope on the desk to shape the air. Tomorrow my children would wake with their past on their own floors, not mine. Tomorrow I'd buy lemons that didn't know my grief. By Saturday the house had learned the new quiet. At 8:03, David texted, we're coming at 10. Don't make this difficult. I brewed coffee, watered the basil, set lemons in a bowl, and wrote 3 rules. Breathe first, ask questions they don't want to answer, make them hear each other. At 10, they arrived without Sophie. The absence stung. David paced, jaw tight. Megan sat, hands around coffee she didn't drink. You can't keep the house, David said. It isn't reasonable. I repeated, no mortgage. He rattled off taxes, safety, maintenance. Megan tried softer, we're worried about you being alone. I told them they were worried about the house being mine. Not the same thing. David claimed they had another buyer. I slid Paul's certified receipt across the table. All contact goes through counsel. His anger flared. Then we'll petition conservatorship. Megan flinched at the word. She hadn't expected him to say it here. I stayed even. Then petition. My voice surprised all of us. I told David that judges prefer facts to feelings. We'd bring recordings. His mouth opened, closed. He didn't like himself when the echo wasn't his. Megan tried to soften it. We want you safe, we want you close. In your basement, I said. She faltered. Silence stretched. I set my phone on the table, tapped speaker. We should include Sophie. She belongs in any talk about her tuition and this house. Megan reached out. Don't drag her into this. She's already in it, I said, and dialed. Sophie answered, bright as morning. Hey, Grandpa. I told her who was with me. She hesitated, then asked why we were talking about money at all. Clean, simple. Megan froze. I asked if she'd gotten my monthly transfers, $500 since freshman year. Her voice cracked. What money? I explained. She realized she'd been told it came from her parents. The truth landed like glass breaking. She cried, not performance, but the kind that leaks from your body when a story breaks open. Grandpa, why didn't you tell me? Because your mom asked me not to. She looked at Megan through the line, sharp and merciless. You wanted credit. You wanted me to keep calling you a hero. Megan's face folded. David tried to cut in, but the damage was done. Sophie whispered, Grandpa, are you okay? I looked at the lemon tree. I'm fine, kiddo. I sound decided. That's different. She wanted to come over. I told her tomorrow, after a walk and something hot that didn't come with a grade. She surprised me by agreeing. When the call ended, the truth filled the room. Megan pressed her palms to her face. I thought if she knew, it would change how she looked at us. I told her she wanted to protect the version where she fixed everything. David snapped. So this is the plan: humiliate us, keep the house, keep your pride? I slid them the same list I'd shown the lawyers. 1. I'm not selling. 2. I'm not moving into a basement. 3. I'll support Sophie directly. Any interference ends it. Megan flinched. She whispered, please. I told her I wasn't her enemy. David shoved back his chair. Congrats. You win. This isn't a game, I said. Everything is, he muttered and left. Megan stayed, tired now, not scheming. Dad, are you going somewhere? Yes. Not today. And not to a basement. She asked if she could come with Sophie tomorrow. I nodded, yes, but leave money at the door and talk like family, not accountants. A small smile broke through. Pie, she said. Pie, I echoed. After she left, I washed the cups, put them back where Sarah had placed them years ago. That obedience felt like prayer. A voicemail from the realtor came, apology shaped like threat. I deleted it. A text from Paul, all notices delivered. No further contact except in writing. Good work today. I walked the house once more, touched Sarah's chair, the list on my pad. I added a fourth line, choose when to leave. Leave like a gentleman. Later I called Anna. She answered quick. Soon, I told her. I'll open windows, she replied. And lemons, I said. Always lemons, she answered. We hung up without ceremony. That night I made dinner slow, because life deserved it. I ended the day with Sarah's folder open, her note under my hand. Thank you, I whispered inside myself. Before bed, I sent Paul one last message. I'd be unreachable midweek. He'd handle the rest. I left a note for Joyce next door, mail and basil if the week turned dry, slipped the spare keys into an envelope labeled for her. Practicality is just clarity tied with a bow. That night, the house whispered itself to sleep, and I lay awake thinking of Sophie's breath catching on the phone, of Megan asking what I wanted her to learn, of David's jaw tight as armor. Sleep finally came not as a bargain, but as a right. By morning, there would be pie, maybe a girl learning to tell herself the truth. After that, a ticket, a bag, a door closed behind me. Not leaving, arriving. David's confidence began to fray, not because I pulled threads, but because I stopped holding them together. His truck loan slipped, his golf club called, and he found a joint account, one Helen had left open, that I'd already closed. He'd been using it like a faucet, never thinking about the pipes. Megan called, pleading softly. He's under pressure, Dad. I told her pressure keeps pipes from freezing. Meanwhile, Paul found a clause in a property agreement that gave me first refusal. I sold my share cleanly, used the funds for municipal bonds in Sophie's name. Only Paul and I knew. David came to the house, scanning like he expected cash piled in corners. You closed the account. Yes. You know that put me in a tight spot. I do. He dropped into a chair. You've got no idea what it's like out there. Costs up, jobs down. I've got responsibilities. So do I said. He left without shaking my hand. Not long after, Megan's catering business lost its biggest client. Officially, they brought things in-house. Unofficially, I knew influence had shifted. Watching them stumble wasn't revenge. It was balance. 4 years, they assumed I was an endless well. Now the spout was dry. Sophie came by Saturday. We pruned rosemary, picked lemons, fixed the shed hinge. She picked it up fast. Steady hands, I told her. Guess it runs in the family, she said, smiling. She hugged me tighter than usual. I thought about telling her everything, the bonds, the sales, the plan. But not yet. Airports make you feel interchangeable. Newark smelled of pretzels and disinfectant. I took the aisle seat, honest when you fly alone. Above the Atlantic, the cabin dimmed, and belief held us like a timetable. I thought of Sophie's breath, Megan's box of piano books, David's knuckles on my door, and Helen's tidy notes. When the attendant gave me coffee with a kind smile, I drank it. Terrible, but it helped. Faro appeared beneath us, blue and white mosaics of certainty. Customs stamped my passport with a quiet welcome. Outside, the Algarve air met me like a handshake, cool, then warm. She was waiting, compact in a navy sweater, holding my name on paper. Her face changed when I saw her, not smiling so much as remembering something she hadn't known she lost. "Mr. Hayes," she said. "Anna," I answered. She hugged me without hesitation, smelling faintly of oranges and soap. "Your Sarah would be angry if I didn't welcome you this way." I laughed. Sarah would have pretended anger, then later admitted it was a prayer. Anna nodded, as if she'd been in our kitchen. "Come," she said, and we drove through hills and sky, white houses scattered like deliberate choices, ruins standing out of respect more than strength. She pointed only when it mattered. Fresh bread here, pharmacy there. Comfort, even if you never use it. When the road narrowed, she slowed. "Olive trees," Anna said, like they were people worth meeting. We turned onto a narrow lane, stone walls spilling purple bougainvillea. When she stopped, it was with the quiet certainty of someone who always arrives where she means. "Home," she said. The house was smaller than mine in the States, larger than the one I'd tried to shrink. White walls, blue shutters, red tile roof. Not a showpiece, just a place that had been asked to be a place, and answered yes. She pressed a brass key into my hand. "This is yours. In law, and in what matters." Inside, light moved freely across sand-colored furniture, shelves lined for books, copper pots that made work look like art. Lemons in a bowl waited like they belonged. Anna moved through the rooms with quiet care. Fresh linens, new mattress, windows that opened like truth. On the terrace, the sea spoke its usual language. Keep moving, keep showing up. In the drawer, I found the legal envelope from Miami. Papers confirmed the house was mine. Anna named caretaker with authority to fix what needed fixing. Sarah's handwriting in the corner. Trust her. I signed. It felt less like claiming than finally agreeing with what had always been true. Anna set bread and green oil on the table. I tore, dipped, ate, and realized I hadn't been honest about hunger since Sarah died. When I asked her to stay, she shook her head. "If I stay, I'll tidy, and then you won't feel at home." She left a sturdy cell phone with 4 numbers. Hers, the office, the plumber, the fishmonger. "Turn off your American phone," she said gently. "Be here to be here." Alone, I walked the rooms, not to catalog, but to ask what belonged where. Sophie's glittering Christmas star found a bowl in the bedroom. My razor on the sink reminded me to buy the sandalwood soap Sarah loved. Sleep came the way Anna promised. I woke to noon light, walked the lane to the market. Bread in paper sleeves, olives glistening. I managed a clumsy obrigado and was handed a loaf like a handshake. Back home, I ate standing first, then on the terrace, the sea still talking. That afternoon, Anna returned, nodding at my wakefulness as if I'd passed a test. I asked about Sarah saving her. Anna told me at 20 she married charm, not goodness, and was left with debts in her name. Sarah walked into her cafe, insisted on a lawyer, sat with her through the papers, wrote notes on the notes. Later, when Anna's mother was sick, Sarah brought soup, made beds, gave dignity where others took it. When she asked me to keep this house ready, Anna said, I promised. I open shutters, change sheets, so the bed remembers being useful. It's not work. It's guarding. I thanked her, and meant it in my bones. She shifted the moment easily. Tonight. Dinner. The cafe by the square. They'll call you Sarah's husband, Anna said. Correct them. Tell them you're Michael, Michael who was her husband. Both truths fit. We walked to the square as the day softened. At the cafe, Anna greeted the owner like family. Soup came simple, fish came clean, and half a glass of wine was enough to make me sleep. Back at the house, I rolled a lemon under my palm until its scent filled the air. I didn't speak to Sarah, no need. The sea had the conversation for both of us. The next morning, I followed Anna's map to the bakery. Chairs were set outside carefully, as if the day needed proof. I bought custards in a paper bag and ate them on the terrace with coffee that remembered how to taste. I wrote a letter to Sophie I didn't plan to send, about the cat that guards the path, the neighbor's laundry swinging like a song, the sea louder at night, kinder in the morning. I folded it and set it under the lemons. By late morning, villagers nodded my way. Anna texted linens. I replied with a photo of the bed made. Later I called Paul on the house phone. Everything's quiet, he said. Good, I told him. Let it be. Afterward, I turned on my American phone. Dozens of messages, David angry, Megan clipped, Sophie a single heart with a question mark. I wrote back only to her, I'm safe. I'm where your grandmother wanted me. When you're ready, I have a chair waiting. Then I shut the phone off again. Evening came with Anna leaning at the gate. Tomorrow, markets, she said. We'll buy bowls you don't need. I smiled. She was right. I had a weakness for things that hold. Before bed, I set Sarah's photograph on the nightstand. It belonged there. The sea's voice was both a wall and a door. I chose the door. The hearing room smelled of varnish and stale air. A clerk called the session to order. David and Megan sat with a young lawyer too polished for his own good. Sophie, steady as stone, sat in the back. The lawyer painted me as an old man burdened by his house, his children stepping in to protect him. When it was my turn, I spread papers across the table, receipts, ledgers, Sarah's letters. I reminded them taxes were paid, repairs made. But that wasn't the point. I slid forward a notarized addendum they'd never seen. Sarah had left not just the house but an adjoining lot, placed in trust for Sophie. The property was already beyond their reach. The council chair cleared his throat. Given this documentation, there's no basis for the petition. And just like that, their plan folded. No drama. Just done. David leaned back, staring at the ceiling. Megan gripped her purse. Their lawyer gathered papers, avoiding my eyes. Sophie rose without a word and walked out with me. At the truck she asked, Grandpa, you didn't have to show them the trust, did you? No, I said. But sometimes you need people to know exactly where they stand. She smiled faintly. You're impossible to beat. It wasn't about winning. It was about writing the last chapter myself, Sarah's hand still steady on mine. That night, coffee steamed in my green mug. The garden lay dark, the rosemary hedge casting shadows across the stones. I thought I heard Sarah's laugh, warm, not sharp. Tomorrow I'd prune again, not for them, not even for me, but because we'd promised the garden would never be left to strangers. Spring arrived in Key West like a window forced open. Cool mornings made coffee a favor. By noon the light lay itself down across everything. Stone, lemon skin, the restless gulf. By the time Sophie's flight landed, I'd learned the rhythms of the lane, the bakery opening at 7, the cat claiming new walls, Anna's quiet knock with bread I hadn't asked for. I stood at arrivals with a little sign Anna insisted on. It felt silly until Sophie's eyes lit up. She ran the last few steps and hugged me without apology. Anna greeted her in the car like a queen bestowing welcome. The drive from Miami felt like a long exhale. Sophie pressed her forehead to the glass. It's like a movie, she whispered. When we stopped in front of the White House with blue shutters, she stood staring. Grandma knew, she said softly. She did. Inside, Sophie touched everything, tile, shelves, the terrace rail. Anna set a bowl of lemons on the table. Sophie rolled one beneath her palm until its scent joined us. "Are we allowed to be this happy?" she asked. "Yes," I told her. Lunch broke our attempt at restraint. Bread, anchovies, olives, wine. Sophie forgave after 5 sips. Anna told the story again of Sarah insisting on ice cream after the lawyer visit. Sophie laughed through tears. That night on the terrace she said, "Mom called. She said she's sorry." "Sorry works better before the mess," I said. "But I believed her," Sophie admitted. Then she told me she wanted to study here, Lisbon or Miami. I told her thinking time was over. "Do it." The next morning, I set an envelope on the table. "Municipal bonds," I said. "In your name since your grandmother's diagnosis. Boring but dependable. Built for a future that finally has shape." She stared, cautious. "What's the catch?" 3. 1. You don't use a cent to rescue your parents from mistakes. 2. You spend it on learning and showing up, not silence. 3. You don't share the number. You can say enough. She nodded, tears close. "Maybe I'll tell Mom one day, if she earns it." Later, we walked to the fishmonger. Sophie stumbled through Portuguese, and he met her halfway, calling her Menina. She laughed, accepting kindness without owing. On our way back, Anna intercepted us with a parcel tied in twine. "For the girl," she said. "From your Sarah. To be given only when you, Senor, had arrived in your own life." We opened it at the table. Inside, a slim notebook. On the first page, Sarah's square, steady handwriting. "Sophie, if Anna has given you this, it means your grandfather has done something brave." Brave looks boring. Papers, keys, saying no when people want yes. Brave also looks like your face, and the faces of women before you who carried stubbornness as a virtue when it served love. "I came here once after my diagnosis, before I told anyone. I sat where you sit now and felt not sad, but relieved, because I believed I had built a life that could be handed on without guilt. If you are here, you are ready to learn how to keep what matters. My only instruction, don't let the people who love you most be the ones who make you smallest. Also, roll lemons before cutting. It loosens them up. Like people." Sophie held the notebook like treasure, then slid it into her backpack beside her passport. That felt right. We cooked the fish, ate it with bread and a white wine Anna swore could make even bad decisions seem glamorous. It made good ones settle deep. Over lunch, Sophie said she wanted to learn how to be someone who didn't confuse praise with purpose. I told her I was still trying too. That afternoon, Anna suggested we use the house phone the way houses should be used. We called Megan. Her face carried something raw I hadn't seen since she was a girl. "Are you okay?" she asked, and meant me, not the house. I told her yes, and that her daughter was too. She nodded, crying without hiding. "I'm trying," she said. "It shouldn't have taken this, but I am." I told her she'd need to practice, like piano. She laughed through tears. "You sent me my piano books to say that." She asked if she could come. "Not now," I said. "Later, when I invite you." She agreed. When we hung up, Sophie dropped her head to the table, exhausted but lighter. "That was hard but good," she said. "Most good is," I told her. "If it's easy, it's cake. But pie is better," she grinned. "Pie is patience." Sunday pie became our shorthand. I texted David a photo of lemon pie with a fork. "Pie next month. Sunday, 2 o'clock. His reply was a single K. It was a start. The rest was paperwork. Paul and I formalized Florida as my residence, the old house as a life estate, the garden preserved by covenant. I signed without shaking. Anna kept bringing bowls I didn't need, and Sophie learned the square, the fishman's dog, and how to ask for things without apology. She flew back briefly to arrange her leave, then returned with only a carry-on, just enough of herself. Megan left flowers on my porch with a card. "I am practicing." David began sending photos, pie at diners, pie at home, even one of a hinge he fixed. It was blurry. It was perfect. One night, Sophie read from the back of Sarah's notebook, small instructions written like secrets at a sleepover. Don't buy shoes that apologize. If a man raises his voice, tell him his point is lonely. Plant rosemary where you'll brush it by accident. When someone loves you, make them learn your grandparents' names. Sophie closed the book and looked at me with Sarah's eyes and her own. I paid attention, she said. That's the kindest love I know, I answered. Then she rolled a lemon like the note instructed, cut it, and let the air do its work. I'm staying, she said. A semester, maybe more. Not to run away, toward. I told her later was a good word, honest, giving people space to earn. Anna arrived with cookies dusted in sugar. For dessert, she said. We told the truth, Sophie answered. Anna nodded. And didn't turn it into theater. That is better. That night, after Sophie kissed my cheek and went to bed, Anna and I watched the sea darken. You're no longer arriving, she said. You've arrived. She was right. It felt like setting something heavy down. Tomorrow we'd buy another bowl. Before sleep, I wrote 3 letters. One to Paul, thanking him for paper that protected instead of hurt. One to Joyce, for basil and kindness without tests. And one to Sarah, because writing to her kept me honest. I told her Sophie had rolled a lemon, Megan had practiced, and David had sent me a hinge. I told her I'd learned to be bored by the right things, excited by others, that this was wisdom. In the morning, Sophie brought me her notebook and 2 pens. Teach me how you make lists, she said. I wrote at the top, what we keep, what we let go, what we build. We filled the page with bread and bowls, sundaes and pie, dignity and distance. By noon, the lemons needed rolling again, the cat had chosen our wall, and the fishman waved like we belonged. The sea kept doing what it always does, being itself without needing to explain. Later, Sophie tucked Sarah's notebook in her bag and smiled. Let's go buy bowls we don't need. Let's, I said. And we walked slowly down the lane, because there was no reason to hurry anymore.